It is now time to consider the research area of forecasting, which tries to make specific claims about the future by means of mathematical tools. So, in other words, forecasters, as you probably know from weather forecasting, for example, they use mathematical tools, they use mathematical models to make predictions about the future and assign probabilities. So when we try to forecast the weather, we hear claims such as 65% probability of snowfall in a specific region. Similarly, with forecasting technologies, and in particular forecasting the future developments of AI technologies, we're trying to assign probabilities for milestones and AI capabilities. So, by analogy, what would be saying for AI systems would be that, let's say, at this time, by 2028, we will get AI systems that are able to do autonomous website development. And what does this mean more concretely? The systems will be able to autonomously construct a payment processing website from scratch. This is what we conceptualize as AI timelines. Exactly this format of assigning specific numbers, probabilities for models and their corresponding capabilities. And that's what you read in this report, where AI researchers give their estimates for where AI capabilities are going to be by specific years, and hence the term timelines. So you get to see what these researchers estimate the models will be capable of doing by 2028, 2027, for example, saying that there's a small chance, a 10% chance, that machines will outperform humans in all tasks. And why do we focus on that in particular? Because this is what many scientists, technologists, researchers understand as AGI, artificial general intelligence, or a point beyond that, which would be superintelligence. In other words, AI systems that are more capable than humans. And so this is why we're interested in being able to assign a probability on what would happen by a specific year, so that we can agree on what the models would be doing and on what we mean exactly when we say, well, these AI systems will be capable of XYZ. So it's important to be able to give a number, so specifically say 10% chance, the year that we expect this to happen, and specify what the phenomenon is going to be. So these are sort of the key features of forecasting, because you can imagine predictions that are very general, such as predictions made by non-scientists, non-researchers that claim things about the future, but they lack the specificity that would ever hold them accountable for anything. And you can think of examples, for example, in astrology, where there are several claims in full generality describing all sorts of traits of people and outcomes that could take place, but never assigning a specific number, never saying this will happen with this probability at that point in time. So unlike these kinds of claims in AI timelines were trying to provide very concrete descriptions that would be falsifiable. So in other words, if in 2027 there are no machines that outperform humans in all tasks, as this prediction tells us here, we are able to falsify this prediction. And this is very important for kind of navigating and testing the accuracy of our model. So you can go through the report and see what these researchers are claiming and what probabilities and estimates are giving. And here I'm just giving you some representative examples. So for example, this 2037, there's a 10% probability that all human occupations will be automated by AI systems. And you can, if we're alive at that point in time, we can easily falsify whether this claim is true or false. Now, as you can expect, the researchers that responded to that survey by AI Impact, which is an organization that studies AI risk based in Berkeley, California, they had some judgments, some opinions, some views on what all these futures could look like, and sort of translated their forecasts into optimistic or pessimistic takes, which is not necessarily a part of forecasting, but it is a way of also making concrete claims about the future, such as saying that assigning a 5% chance to very, very negative outcomes. For example, AI X risk extinction. And you see here that more than half of the respondents of the survey, 68.3%, think that positive outcomes are more likely than negative. And 48 of the optimists, however, assign this at least 5% chance for very negative outcomes. So this is good to just keep in mind in terms of both assigning probabilities, but also being able to interpret within the context of the probabilities what would these future scenarios would mean. And that takes us to the more conceptual paper of this week, again by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom, who outlines 4 potential future scenarios for humanity. And very briefly, I just summarize here the first sort of like really bad X risk scenario. Again, this is a very old paper, as you'll see, the future of humanity. So it does not necessarily assume all the knowledge we have right now about AI development, and there's no AGI race at the time. But it's kind of very easy for you to generalize it and contextualize it in the framework of our current information and knowledge of AI progress. So this first scenario of existential threat, that could be just the end. Recurrent collapse, so civilization rise and fall, and that keeps happening, so there's no actual progress, there's no continuity in one civilization if this keeps happening. A future of plateauing, which would be just remaining still, maybe would be pretty good. Imagine reaching a plateau where we are right now, where we have a lot of technology, we have medicine, we're dealing with a lot of our problems, we can resolve many of our problems, but that does not mean that we're doing perfectly. That does not mean there's no room for improvement. Most of us would like to be able to cure many diseases, for instance, or solve other societal problems. or even technological problems. So imagine sort of this world where things just stop where they are. It's not necessarily very bad, because it does not mean that we're going backwards, but we're still kind of stuck with whatever problematic situations we're in at the moment, which is itself pretty concerning. And then the fourth scenario of a post human future where humans become something very different, way more capable. And that could be through AI, through technological augmentation, as Nick Bostrom says. And that would be a future of technological singularity, as we'll read in the David Chalmers paper, where there's a technology explosion, and there are many different speculations one could have about this kind of future of sort of solving every problem. It really depends what direction you want to see this future taking and how specific you would want it to be. But it's sort of like the most different, the most, I guess, inspiring future in a sense. Again, provided that it's beneficial for humans and it does take humans into account. So that's the summary of the possible futures. And it's good to go back to the timelines and try to ask yourselves, once you've read them and now considering everything we have covered in the course, what would be your timelines? What kind of claims would you be willing to make, and what probabilities you would be assigning, and what years would you be seeing these different futures taking place? So if you want this as an exercise for yourselves, you could just start thinking, well, now we have large language models and they have this level of cognitive capabilities. What would happen in a year from now? So maybe you can ask yourselves, do I expect LLMs to be better in a year or two from now? Do I expect new models to be released? Do I expect that we'll keep eliciting capabilities out of the systems? Do I expect that the progress is going to stop for whatever reason? So just use this as a good sort of thought experiment, as an exercise, and try to test your own ideas here.